I know that my Redeemer lives.
Some people are very passionate about the Bible translation they use. They've been using it a long time, and they really love it, and they want to keep using it. And that's great. If that's the boat you're in, that's awesome. Keep using the one that you're comfortable using. Keep using the one you've been using all these years. However, if you review the Bible translation that you use maybe every so often, here are some things to consider. First of all, you'll want to think about what we're going to call the stability of the translation. Does the translation have staying power, or is it a novelty translation of the Bible that will disappear in a few years? If possible, it's beneficial to use a translation that other people are using as well. An excellent way to keep an eye on this is to pay attention to the best-selling list of the Bible over time. The following list I'm about to give you comes from churchanswers.com. Now, these are rankings from June of 2021, but as of today, the rankings would be somewhat similar. And I'm only going to read off the English translations. On this list, first of all, you have the New International Version at number 1, the King James Version at number 2, the New Living Translation at number 3, the English Standard Version at number 4, the New King James Version at number 5, the Christian Standard Bible at number 6, the New International Reader's Version at number 8, and at number 9, you have the Message. The two other translations are Spanish or foreign translations. The top 6 best-selling Bible translations over the last 10 years have remained the same. Now, some of them have moved up on that list. Maybe they've moved up to 2. Some of them have moved down. Maybe they've dropped to 5. But the group of 6 have remained the same over the last 10 years. The NIV, the King James Version, the New Living Translation, the English Standard, New King James Version, and the Christian Standard Bible. The popularity of a translation is not the only measurement to use, but it should be something that you consider. The second thing you should think about when it comes to a translation of the Bible is the reliability of the translation. Some translations are more accurate to the original languages of the Bible, Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek, than others. Every translation has shortcomings in some areas because the translation was done by a group of uninspired men. I would strongly suggest that your primary study Bible be a word-for-word translation. These translations are usually the most accurate to the original languages. I strongly suggest using translations like the New American Standard Bible, although maybe it's not as popular as it used to be, using the English Standard Version, the King James Version, or the New King James Version. These are very good word-for-word translations. Thought-for-thought and paraphrase translations are useful in Bible study, but they are not as reliable as a word-for-word translation. Don't rely on something that is going to be less accurate than the original manuscripts. And then the final thing to think about when it comes to choosing a Bible translation is you also want to think about the readability of the translation. When it's all said and done, you have to be able to read and understand the translation that you use. If you struggle with reading the King James Version or the New King James Version, then switch to a translation that's easier for you to read and study. In my personal opinion, perhaps the best balance of accuracy and readability in today's English is the English Standard Version. Now, for me personally, I use the New King James Version because it's a good stand-in-the-gap translation between the King James Version and the English Standard. And what I mean by that is people who use the King James Version can follow along with teaching or preaching from the New King James Version just fine, and usually so can people who use the ESV. It's a good go-between translation between the ESV, the English Standard Version, and the King James Version. Now, when we think about Bible translations, we need to be kind to others. even if they use a different translation than us. Someone who uses the ESV is not automatically a liberal heretic, just like someone who uses the King James Version is not automatically a Pharisee who exalts tradition. Find a good translation you like, you read, and you use. Stick with it until a change needs to be made, if a change ever needs to be made. I'm reminded of what Ezra 7:10 says. For Ezra had prepared his heart to seek the law of the Lord and to do it, and to teach statutes and ordinances in Israel. I appreciate you watching and listening to yet another episode of Centered on Christ.
Centered on Christ is emailed as an article 5 days a week. Click the link in the description if you want to start receiving Centered on Christ to help with your daily Bible study.